You were just recently in Iran and you spoke to some officials who were painting a gloomy picture about the state of the talks on a new nuclear deal, with the Trump team not being able to make up its mind on what it wants to do. We keep constantly hearing conflicting reports. Sometimes the Trump team is okay with some level of Iranian enrichment. And as you were told, that's a red line for Iran. They insist on their right to peaceful enrichment. And sometimes Trump says they're okay with that. Sometimes the Trump team says they're not. What kind of pressure are the Democrats putting on Trump right now? Are they lobbying him to be pro-peace, to restore their own nuclear deal? Well, Chuck Schumer, the Democratic Senate leader who campaigned against the first Iran nuclear deal, he continues on Israel's half to campaign against another Iran nuclear deal.
Comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran, Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran. What kind of bull is this? They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything? That's outrageous. We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress and, most importantly, the American people. If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it. No side deal.
Look, who's Chuck Schumer think he represents anymore? I mean, most of the ultra-Zionists have gone over to the Trump camp, right? So, like, who does he think is going to rally behind his pro-Israel campaign to kill a deal with Iran? I mean, it's basically it's people in his age cohort, because Democratic Party, if you look at the polls, the younger generation are no longer on board anymore. So I don't even understand who Chuck Schumer thinks he's rallying when he tries to implore Trump to pursue the Israeli campaign of regime change in Iran.
It kind of reminds me of the Dubai port scandal that Chuck Schumer cooked up against George W. Bush, that the Bush administration had made some deal to do shipping with a port in Dubai, like the United Arab Emirates was some terrorist entity. And they just played on anti-Arab sentiment to try to bring Bush's approval numbers down. And it was kind of like a rallying point for the Democrats. They can never rally as an anti-war party, as the Iraq war sent thousands of Americans home in body bags or without their legs. So I think that's just Schumer's thinking there, along with the fact that he is just ideologically an ultra-Zionist who's been on book tour promoting his book on this wave of anti-Semitism, which is apparently, anti-Semitism is so bad in the US that it's prevented one of the most obviously Jewish people from becoming Senate minority leader and former majority leader. I mean, the discrimination is off the charts.
Yeah.
And so, basically Barak Ravid at Axios reported that Witkoff had agreed to offer Iran a deal with some level of civilian enrichment, which was the only way to get a deal. And then the next thing you know, Chuck Schumer attacks, all of these Zionist freaks in Trump's camp, like Mark Levin, stage a temper tantrum. And then Trump undercuts Witkoff. This is Fox News. Trump reaffirms hard line on Iran nuclear deal will not allow any enrichment of uranium. This is exactly what I was reporting on from Tehran, speaking to diplomats who are very well informed about what's going on in these talks, is that the Trump administration can never make up its mind, and they don't even know what Trump thinks. So they have to impute some kind of 5D chess to Donald Trump to explain this irrational, chaotic, bipolar behavior. But really what it comes down to is stupidity, lack of diplomatic skill, and the preponderance of Zionist pressure from both parties in Washington on Donald Trump to not have a deal and to go to war. So where are we going here? I don't think there's going to be a deal. And the deal that they were offered also only allows Iran to enrich at a very low level for a short period of time, and then they're told not to enrich. Donald Trump is, bellowing or kind of blurting out comments about blowing up Iran's nuclear facilities. And he's like, we should be able to blow them up in a very controlled way rather than blowing them up through war. Like, do you think Iran's going to agree to that? A regional power is going to agree to let some foreign country come in and blow up civilian nuclear facilities that are not forbidden under the Non-Proliferation Treaty? No. So I don't think there's going to be a deal. And neither does former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joseph Dunford, who was at the AI Expo we were just talking about, who said that we shouldn't be focused on we meaning the national security state, shouldn't focus on a long-term conflict down the road with China. The main focus should be the next 90 days and war with Iran, because he believes that is coming.
Even when Obama, put a lot of political capital into making the initial JCPOA, the Iran deal, he did it kind of half-heartedly. He didn't fully implement his own deal, and he made it very easy for it to be broken, which Trump promptly did. And so even the person who's like puts capital into diplomacy can't even do it fulsomely. And it's just in Washington, it's just president after president continues to show that diplomacy is just impossible in Washington, that the pro-war forces always win. Look what happened when Joe Biden appointed Robert Malley to be his envoy for renegotiating the Iran deal. And Robert Malley helped negotiate the initial Iran deal. He helped broker ceasefires and ultimately wind down the Syria dirty war. He was as pro diplomacy as you can be in Washington. And what happened to him? Like, his hands were tied, so he never consummated any deal with Iran. And then ultimately, near the end of the Biden term, Malley got displaced by being accused of mishandling classified documents, which is a case I never fully understood. He basically was sabotaged by other people in Washington, and nobody had his back. And so he was taken out. And so he was prevented from going ahead. And no one even got to the bottom of what really happened there. But it was just considered routine that, like this person who's like mildly pro-diplomacy, let's just take him out by accusing him of mishandling classified documents. And everyone just kind of moved on. He didn't raise a big fuss about it either, really. I think he just kind of took it in silence because he was up against too many pro-war forces. It wasn't worth it to him to like defend himself. And then that's it. It's just what happens. And now Trump comes in. The moment anybody pro-Israel raises their voice, he backs off what his own team has been floating in terms of agreeing to some limited Iranian enrichment. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't expect a deal either.
And most people I spoke to in Iran, just, outside of diplomatic circles, do not expect one. And remember, as you mentioned, that Obama didn't take the JCPOA seriously enough to enforce it and provide sanctions relief. So if Iran got no relief, why should they enter a new deal that forces them to make concessions with very little to gain? The only factor here, I think, is that the Israel lobby is so dead set against any deal and so determined to wage war by the end of the summer that does incentivize Iran to just to avoid a war. And that's the dynamic that Trump has created by leaning in so hard to negotiations without any understanding of the issues, and sending in Witkoff, who's working on so many different portfolios that he doesn't really have much time for this in any case. One quick I think this is newsworthy piece on the Iran negotiations is another intervention by Tucker Carlson, who revealed that Mark Levin, representing the Zionist movement, the neocon lobby, was at the White House to push for war with Iran. And Tucker Carlson offered a long and very well thought out articulation of reasons to reject Mark Levin's push for war and to reject war. And one point is, as he says, that there is zero credible intelligence that suggests Iran is anywhere near building a bomb or plans to. There was this IAEA report which drew on past US and Israeli claims, which is very suspect to me, which claimed the opposite. And Netanyahu has been circulating it as much as he can. Iran knows this, which is why they aren't building one. Iran also knows it's unwise to give up its weapons program entirely. Muammar Gaddafi tried that and wound up sodomized with a bayonet. As soon as Gaddafi disarmed, NATO killed him. Iran's leaders saw that happen. They learned the obvious lesson. And that is another great point Tucker Carlson made. Israeli media, Ynet specifically, Yediot Aharonot, the Israeli broadsheet, published a piece articulate I guess channeling Netanyahu's anxiety about Tucker Carlson's presence in the White House, his influence and the power of what they call the Vance faction. I mentioned the firing of several ultra-Zionist officials, Morgan Ortagus, Merav Seren, who is actually an Israeli former defense ministry consultant who was hired by Mike Waltz, was fired. And there was one other. But Netanyahu is particularly worried about J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson and the grassroots right-wing America First forces they represent. And justifiably so. But I think that's some positive news, is that there is some anxiety because there is some anxiety in Tel Aviv because there's actual pushback within Trump's world. I don't think it's enough pushback, and I don't think Trump has what it takes to make a deal. But perhaps the U.S. will not support Israel's coming assault on Iran, which most people I spoke to in Iran expect by the end of the summer.
Well, Trump is said to want the Nobel Peace Prize really badly, so maybe that could be enough to deter him from taking part in an Israeli war on Iran. But so far, the Israel lobby has gotten everything they wanted, and it's I don't know, it's really a positive sign that someone like Tucker Carlson still has the ear of the White House. Maybe they'll listen to him. And it's just Biden did us no favors by refusing to enter into his to renegotiate his own administration.